of the Matrons Ministry. And I thought it was because they really wanted somebody really smart to lead it, but I was kind of the only one between the age of 18 and 35 that met the requirements. But it was in that ministry that the elderly ladies really did what the Bible say that older women should do when it comes to training younger women. They really were very kind to me. They would bring diapers, they would bring different clothing for my babies. It was in that ministry that I really, really cleaned up my speech. You know, coming from the streets, you kind of use the 4-letter words, every other word. And they just really embraced me and showed me a lot of love in that position. Then I became like the Matrons president for the association. So now I was going to churches all over the state of Florida, you know, speaking and representing the church and just building bonds and relationships with a lot of those ladies who just really loved me and my kids unconditionally. I remember during my time in the master's program, I needed books, and I, you know, was working 2 or 3 jobs, but with my babies, I just couldn't afford it. And I remember them, you know, chipping in some money to buy my books. Everybody was just, you know, wanting me to stay in school. And I was really blessed by that. So at the point of almost finishing my doctorate, I went back to school to New Orleans Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, where I earned a Master's of Divinity, because with Dr. Matt King Carter, if you were going to be in ministry, whatever facet of ministry you were going to be in, you had to be trained in that part of ministry. And that degree, actually, the church paid for me. All I had to do was just attend because of Dr. Carter's commitment to education and learning. So it's like God just continued to connect me with people who were educators and people who had this spirit about education. And at some point in my life, that spirit just began to be a part of who I was. And that's why I love serving on the school board. I get an opportunity to interact with so many young people and so many wonderful people that work in the school system with the various principals and teachers. And I believe in every single child. I don't care what level they're on. I believe that we can help empower them and encourage them. I believe that we can find strategies and methods to help them. If I could learn how to read finally at the end of 3rd grade, I just believe that any child can learn how to read. My life has also taught me that education is definitely the way to economic empowerment. I'm a former welfare mom. I remember needing that welfare, working at McDonald's, making $3.35 an hour, being promoted to a manager at McDonald's and making $5.75 an hour with 3 babies, trying to be self-supporting, declining outside contributions, and some of y'all will get that after a while. How it was just really, really difficult for me. It was not until I earned my master's that I was able to earn a decent salary that I could support and take care of my kids and try to give them, you know, a better quality of life. So I'm really grateful for the opportunities that this community has given me to serve in various capacities. I've had some wonderful, wonderful mentors, people that have mentored me directly, people that I've watched from afar. I'm excited sometimes now in my church when I get to go visit some of the elderly people. Some of them who were kind of mean to me growing up because they wouldn't let me, you know, chew my chewing gum in church and those kind of things. They would, you know, make me put it on the back of my ear and stuff like that. So sometimes when I go out and visit them on the home visit to pray for them, I take my time and tell them that I'm delaying the prayer because I'm remembering some of the things they used to do. No, just kidding. But it's just so amazing how in life God allows us to help each other. How God has created this whole world and He's purposed community. He's put us in this world for us to be in community. And He's given all of us at least one spiritual gift, and some of us multiple spiritual gifts. But those gifts are not for us to become famous or for us to use for our personal gain. Those gifts are for us to use to help each other to be better and to make this world a better place. And in doing that, God is glorified and He elevates us and put us in places that we could never even imagine that we would find ourselves in. But it's all when we understand that every gift, every talent, everything that God has blessed us with is so that we could use it to make the world better, or we could use it to create opportunities for people's lives to be better. So I live by this simple acronym, change. Children have a need to grow every day. And I believe that we all have an obligation and a responsibility to create those opportunities for our children to grow every day. So I wake up and I first try to make my lifestyle be such a model for children that they have opportunities to grow simply by watching me, from the way I dress, from my attitude, my appearance, the way that I interact with them. But I try to be a living epistle, a living example. And there are a lot of times, especially during school board meetings, that I could respond to some things very differently. But I always look at this little prayer that I have on my seat, to let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to God. But I always think about the young person that might be watching the school board meeting that day. And I always want my behavior and my actions to be such that a young person can mimic that behavior or that action and it be okay.
And I just want to emphasize that you were the one in the 3rd grade that they said would never read, would never amount to anything. You have an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, 2 master's degrees, one in theology, one in public administration, and a PhD. Won't he do it? He will do it. I want to go ahead and ask the audience if anyone has any questions. Pearl is going to be coming around for you to write those. You'll have an opportunity to send those up and to ask Dr. Osgood anything that you may want to hear from her. But I have a couple things I'd like to kind of go back with you. I am a college professor. Several of my students are here with us today from Florida Memorial. And I tend to think about college as those years that are so incredibly transformative in a person's life. And I know that that is when you went and were beyond kind of the protective gaze of your grandparents, and things took a turn for the worse. And we had this conversation too before the election about Amendment 2 and this whole kind of casual approach to marijuana now that's kind of burgeoning around the nation. I wonder if you could really reflect on that a little bit more for our for the benefit of the young people in the audience, just to kind of talk about, you know, what that looks like. Because I think very often, sometimes we find ourselves on a slide and we don't recognize we're on a slide until we end up too deep. And I wanted to, if you could describe what that was like for you.
Certainly, when I went to college, I was away from home, so I did all of those things that I was taught not to do. I think my grandparents were very strict, so they didn't know how to teach me and train me through a lot of different things that I would face. They just said, don't do it. And when I went to college and I was on my own, I was away from home, I started doing all of those things. It's always competition for your intellect, competition for your worship, for your focus and your time. And basically, every day, all throughout life, we have to choose between good and evil, between right and wrong. So when I went to college, I started hanging out with all of the wrong people, doing all of the wrong things, and my life went to an all-time low. I'm in 1% of the people that recover from substance abuse and alcoholism. And I like to say that because I don't want to mislead young people that you can just waste your brain cells on marijuana and drinking and all of that stuff, and then you just recover real easy. My life went to an all-time low where I was literally living on the streets, eating out of dumpsters. As a matter of fact, I remember being so messed up some days I would move into abandoned houses and apartment buildings, and the rats and roaches would move next door because they didn't want to be bothered with me. I remember when I started being arrested, running in and out of jail. I remember December 2nd, 1989. There I sat with 3.5 years of college education in the Volusia County Jail in a pair of orange khakis with no accessories at about 85 pounds soaking wet with my lipstick weighing more than me. Just one joint. Never thought that it would lead to that. Just kicking it, just hanging out, just having fun. So I was adamantly opposed to Amendment 2, and medical marijuana, because I see it as the start of a bigger demise. With medical marijuana,